Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Litter Media Live. This is a special edition with a new friend that we've just met by the name of Bob Nelson. Bob was in the U.S. Army Signal Corps between 1951 and 53 during the Korean conflict, and we'll talk about his service and most recently how he got to take the Veterans Honor Flight to the nation's capital. Our interview is brought to you by Hometown Motors Incorporated. Back with Bob Nelson right after this.
As a professional race car driver, I live for speed, power, and performance on and off the track. That's why I use the Dixie Chopper, the world's fastest lawnmower. Race into your local dealership today and test drive a new Dixie Chopper.
Mike Smith back with Korean War veteran Bob Nelson. Bob, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
First of all, let's talk a little about your background. You were not a Chillicothe native to start with.
No.
Where were you from?
I grew up in Indianapolis and went to Purdue. And I think I mentioned that I graduated in 1950. I had a job. I'm a forester. Mm-hmm. I studied forestry at Purdue. And I had a job in Alaska with the Forest Service. And the day I got to Alaska in 1950, the Korean War broke out.
Wow.
And so I knew I would be drafted. The draft was still in.
Yeah. So that was 50. A year later, that's when you went into the Army?
Well, it was about 6 months later until they got the draft going again. And I was drafted into the Signal Corps.
Now, explain what that is, the Signal Corps.
Well, it's a branch of the Army that does all kinds of photographing of incidents, or like we said a little bit ago, we train people to go up in small L-19 airplanes or Bell helicopters in battle conditions. For example, the commander would want to know what's on the backside of that mountain or something like that, and our people that would go up and take the necessary pictures, and we had field labs to process the film and print pictures, and we could get a picture out to a commander in less than 2 minutes from the time the film hit the ground.
Now, while you're talking that, Aaron, our producer, can put that picture up with some of his Army Day photos, and we can get a little bit of a description on that. Of course, this is the honor flight, but this has 3 different pictures of you. That's, of course, in uniform with the rifle in your hand. Looks like you got a camera in your hand in that second picture.
Yeah, that was what, we learned basic things, how to use a 4x5 graphic camera. That was the standard Army at that time. And
I think you showed me a newspaper article. We didn't get that picture, but it was a state-of-the-art camera for its time.
It was a brand new one developed there at Fort Monmouth, where the Signal Corps is based, and just come out. And there's a picture of me holding it, but I never had used it, and I'm not sure how much it was used after I was discharged either.
But that was a
state-of-the-art at that time.
That was a nationally published article with your picture in it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a big deal.
Yeah. Now, you stayed stateside during the Korean conflict, but you taught soldiers on how to use this technology.
Yeah. When I went through the signal school at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, it was a 10 or 12 week training program. This was after basic training, but they kept me on as an instructor in Fort Monmouth, and I taught aerial photography and so on. I think we have a picture of little L-19 observation planes that we used, and Bell helicopter, two-person helicopter were used also get the photographer to the scene to take the pictures.
Now, the Korean conflict ended in 1953. Did you stay on for a few years after that in the Army?
No, I was only in for the 2 years. I could have stayed longer, but I was just out of college, and I was anxious to get out and start earning a living. And in fact, within a week of being discharged, I was hired by the Meade Corporation as a forester.
And that brought you to Chillicothe?
Well, it did. I was hired to be a wood buyer in Indiana, or Kentucky, and Illinois, and that lasted about 4 years. And then we started a new land buying program here in Chillicothe, and they transferred me in here to head that up.
What year was that?
I was about 1958, I think it was, or 57 or 58.
Yeah. And you made this home.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't leave it now. I'm a dedicated Buckeye now. Although I'm a Purdue guy when it comes to the Purdue, Indiana Old Oak and Bucket football.
So who were you rooting for a few weeks ago when Ohio State played Purdue?
Well, it was a tight one because I have daughters and sons-in-laws that are all Buckeyes graduates, so we go round and round, But Purdue didn't have much of a football team this year.
It's been a while.
About in the bottom of the rack. Yeah.
Now, you were telling me before we went on the air that you were on the Board of Education for a number of years at Union Scioto or Uniota School.
Yeah, my kids all went to Uniota, and I think when my oldest daughter was in about the 5th or 6th grade, I helped start the 6th grade conservation camp at Uniota, which went for over 50 years and just recently was dropped because of different conditions. But that's about when the superintendent, Charles Stevens, ended up being a very close friend of mine, and he encouraged me to run for the school board. And I was elected for 3 terms, so 12 years on the board, and so I'm a Uniota guy.
He's a Sherman. So fast forward 2023. Bob, by the way, is 95 years young.
Yep.
You had the chance to take the Veterans Honor Flight to Washington, D.C. Let's talk about that trip.
Well, someone that is 65 or older and has had at least 1 day of active duty is eligible for the honor flight. And I've had a number of friends that have gone, and some of them have really bugged me about signing up, because it's a voluntary thing. And to be honest with you, I've held off on going on it because I did not go overseas in my tour of duty, and I wanted to give guys that had served overseas, and some had seen pretty rough battle conditions and so on. So I was waiting for them to have the honor, but this spring I did decide to apply for it. That's what you do.
Was that the first time you'd been to Washington?
Oh, I've been there a number of times, yeah. I really had seen all of the memorials over the years. My wife and I had traveled there, and we had one of our daughters and family lived not far away in Maryland, so we made several trips there.
Had you been there since the newest World War II Korean monuments had been put up?
Yes, I was there. It's been 5 or 6 years ago. I saw the Korean memorial, and it is very moving. I'll tell you, it's very lifelike, of the 6 or 8 soldiers with their their ponchos on and their guns and all their field equipment, and it simulates that they're going through a rice paddy, you know, looking for the enemy and so on.
With the other trips that you took over, if I can use the term, as a civilian, as opposed to the honor flight, what moved you more about going over with other veterans as opposed to maybe going over with family?
Well, the honor flight is a real honor, you know, and it is extremely well produced and carried out. In our group, there were 82 men and women. There were several women that had been in service. We had only one man that was in World War II that was in our group, and there were only 3 of us, like myself, that were during the Korean War, and the rest were Vietnam vets and other special events. Yeah.
Now, how many days were you there?
Well, it's just one full day.
Just one full day.
Yeah.
Wow.
My 2 friends. I think you have a picture of Mac Peters. And Rudy Stover.
Yeah.
It's sort of interesting. The honor flight people had lined up a gentleman from Greenfield to take me and pick me up later. But I was at a meeting with Mac and Judy, and they come over and said, "Hey, we want to take you to Washington and bring you back," which I thought was really great. I really appreciated it. So they volunteered, and they picked me up at about 4:45 in the morning, and then came back at about 9 o'clock at night in Columbus.
Yeah.
And it was close to midnight by the time we got home, you know. So it was one full day.
Right.
And they really keep you on the go. We had 3 busloads of people, and it included the 82 servicemen. And then there's what they call a guardian for every two people to help them. An awful lot of the guys were in wheelchairs and so on. I had my dad's cane. I brought that just to make it a little easier for walking, because we did a lot of walking.
Sure.
And they wanted me to take a wheelchair and an elevator to go up to the Lincoln Memorial, which is just a wonderful memorial. But I said, no, I want to walk up the steps. And there were a lot of steps there, too. But I made it easily. So.
When I called Bob about coming in on the program, of course, our loft studios here at Litter Media is upstairs above of a warehouse. And knowing that Bob was 95, I said, could you, and he said, don't worry about it. I went up and down the Lincoln Memorial step. This guy is in shape. What do you do to stay in such great shape?
I don't know. I'm very fortunate to be I don't have any medication that I take.
Wow.
And I love to work around my yard and so on. I've been involved with all kinds of things. And I'm not on the board of the Historical Society anymore, but I was very active, and I was the head of the fund drive to raise $1 million to build our new building and so on. And our new carriage house in the back and so on. So, and I think I'd mentioned Brad Cosenza, who used to be our parks director.
Yes.
And I worked with him on the tree commission and things like that. So I've been keeping plenty busy.
Bob, before we close out, if there are any veterans watching, what would you say to them if they've not taken this honor flight, why they should?
Well, first of all, it's a real honor. It's an extremely privilege to take the flight. And a couple of things. When we arrived in Washington, D.C. at the airport, there was 1,000 people or more in the airport lobby there to greet us and shake our hands and so on. There were tremendous number of people at the grave of the unknown soldier, particularly a lot of young people that were there on tours, but they were very happy and wanted to shake our hands and thank us. So, and when we got back to Columbus that evening at about 9 o'clock, there were several thousand people in the lobby there greeting us. And in fact, Mac took me down. He said, "Hey, I want you to meet a lady that's down there." And this lady is part of a group, a local group there that makes quilts. Oh. And they had, apparently she had said, "I want to give a quilt to every Korean veteran," which there were 3 of us. Yeah. So, and they had already given, in the ceremony, they'd given a U.S. flag to the World War II veteran. And so they gave these beautiful quilts with stars and stripes and so on them. And so anyway, it was just a real honor and a privilege, and it'll bring tears to your eyes. And it's wonderful that people are recognizing and thanking veterans for their service.
We are very appreciative of you and all of our great veterans, no matter whether you were stateside or overseas. Everybody gave something for our freedom, and what you did in training fellows that had to go overseas was just as important. So we're glad you got to take that trip.
Thank you. And, I am too.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
A joy to meet Mr. Bob Nelson today. Korean War era veteran, served in the U.S. Army Signal Corps between 1951 and 1953. He's been our guest today on the special edition, brought to you by Hometown Motors Incorporated. I'm Mike Smith.